Hello and welcome to Monday Mug Mentions. Thank you all for being here. So many of you here today. I see Daniel, John, Stephanie, Mom, Yuri, Alex, Martin, Ian. Thank you all so much for being here this Monday. It is a really nice, cool Monday morning. The first really nice, cool, air conditioning free Monday morning that we've had on the segment, and I'm loving it. It's great. It's so nice outside. It's a little humid, but I don't care. It's nice and cool. How is everyone doing today? I hope you're having a wonderful Monday. It has been a live stream filled morning. I will tell you guys what, I've seen so many live streams this morning, watching some awesome folks talk about content, what they're doing for the year, conventions coming up, some cool stuff. So just want to say hello to everyone. Hello to Courtney. Thank you for joining, my fantastic, marvelous, wonderful wife. So good to see you. I think the baby is sleeping on top of Courtney right now, so she can't move at all or be loud or anything. But I know she's probably wanting to jump and applaud every time that I'm on camera, right? Martin says it's evening here, so instead of coffee, I'm having gin and tonic. Hey, you could put gin in coffee. I don't suggest it, but you could put gin in coffee. I am going to tell you what I'm drinking today, and that is a cup from Coffee Exchange of the Kid from Brooklyn blend, and this is pretty tasty. I gotta be honest. This is like not the worst, um, you know. Of the blends that I've ever had, it's probably one of the best, as a matter of fact. It's really, really tasty. Like there's a bunch of, it's like chocolatey almost, and it's got a smoky flavor, even if you can imagine. It's really good. So Coffee Exchange, if you guys are in the Providence area or ever in New England, go check it out. It was insane. I walked in, and they had it was almost 30 different types of beans. And there was a bunch of people in line to purchase food and just regular coffees. But I went over and started looking at the beans to decide on what I was going to get. And essentially, a coffee sommelier came out and served me and talked me through the different beans and all those sorts of stuff. I found three different varieties to take with me on my trip to Ohio tomorrow morning. I'm getting up very early in the morning and driving to Ohio to go work with Ian and John for a couple days, and then we're all heading off to Grand Con in Michigan. So if you'll be at Grand Con, come say hi. Come test Human Resources, our new RPG that Ian and I have been working on. It's a bunch of fun. I'm really excited to see how it plays. So I'd love to see your faces at Grand Con if you'll be there, and come check out HRPG. For mail this week, there wasn't much. Actually, the only mail I got was my own games. So I got a small restock of Stir Fry 18 from our warehouse in Texas, since I'm going to Grand Con and visiting some friends, and I got some promos to give to those friends as well. So I had some of those sent. Other than that, there was no major mail this week. There was supposed to be one today, and it'll probably be here tomorrow after I leave, but I did get some of them sent. I guess I'll drop the. I'm even wearing a shirt done by the artist who did our pins, so I guess I can drop the information now. We have a limited edition enamel pin, an artist series of pins that we're going to be doing, but the very first one was done by the artist Nick Nazaro, and you'll be able to see it. I'll have a picture of it probably Friday at Grand Con. When I get there, there will be a vendor who has my pins, at least 10 of them, I think, as long as everything's set up correctly, and I'll go grab the pins from them, and I'll be able to show them off. So we have a special enamel pin of our mascot. The mascot will be the yawning iguana, the yawning iguana. So you could figure out how we came to that. But anyway, we'll have enamel pins of the yawning iguana done by Nick Nazaro from Lay Waste Games, and the artist behind Dragoon and Human Era, which I think is sitting over one of that shoulder. So yeah, he did an amazing enamel pin for us of our first yawning iguana, and it's a very limited run. We're going to do limited runs on all the artist ones, but there's going to be a couple ways to win them, and then you'll be able to get them from us at conventions and stuff like that. So can't wait to show that off. I was really hoping I'd see those. There's still one little chance they might be on my doorstep a little bit later today. If not, then I will have them up next week. You'll be able to see them when I get back. So if I'm very tired next week, you'll know why. It's because I've just done a 15-hour drive from Michigan to Rhode Island on Sunday. So I will be coming back on Sunday, but I may be very tired on Monday. Be prepared probably for some vocal fry as well from the long convention and work week. But other than that, we will get past the coffee, which is delicious, by the way. John and Ian, I'm bringing up 3 different types from Coffee Exchange, 1 blend and 2 bean types that look really, really good. So we'll get to enjoy those. Maybe we can do a taste test between them if you want. So, hello, David, Stephen, Brad, Elena, so good to see you. Tell Alex I said hello, and much love to you guys. I hear you might be finding a new place that you're going to be soon, and I hope it's somewhere near us. This week I want to talk about a couple of games that require attention to detail. The first one I'm going to talk about is a video game called Papers, Please, and I guess I'll get our handy-dandy screen right over here, and then show you a little bit of what Papers, Please is. But a lot of people have probably played this. You may have tried this if you're a PC gamer. If you haven't, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what it is. So what you're trying to do is essentially make sure that there is no person that gets through these checkpoints that shouldn't, based on the different stipulations you have. And they start by just doing stuff with passports and all that kind of stuff, but then they expand on to having certain permits and all these sorts of things. So in terms of real world stuff, of course, there is some real world stuff. I think this was made in 2013, but this was based on sort of a USSR type of nation state where you've got to check everyone who comes in. There's threats and stuff like that. There's terrorist attacks. It's that is a little real world, but it's done in a pixelated way that I don't think is at all harmful. Again, the violence is black and white pixels exploding generally, so it's not something that's too terrible, but it is a real sort of thing that people might not enjoy seeing things about, checking paperwork and all that sort of stuff. One thing the game does is put you in a place of like absolutely understanding what a monotonous job that is, and then B, what a strange and weird life it would be to be the person who was checking documentation like this on a regular basis. In this particular situation, you're also beholden to the state, and so you've got to be very, very careful. So catch up with some comments here. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Brittany, Bo, Bebo, wow. Thank you for joining. So good to see you. Steven says, yo, I love the shirt. Thank you, Brittany. This is my friends at Laywaste are some of the most awesome folks in the industry. They make great games, and they are also very, very helpful, and I like working with them. So thank you. I like the shirt, too. I only get to wear it every once in a while because it's so bright, but I love it. Let's see. Jeff Johnson and Ben, hello. Thank you for joining. So Steven says about Papers, Please, it's dark but not gruesome. That's a really good explanation of it. So Elena says, sounds like a government employee's dream. Yeah, it's strange. So, resources are tight in this country you're in, so you have a hard time feeding your family and doing this job as well. But you'll see there's little pictures of passports. If the picture doesn't match up, or if it's expired, of course, you've got to deny the person, not let them through the checkpoint. As the game progresses, it gets more difficult. They'll have certificates and different things you have to check and make sure all of the information lines up. And there's also a mechanism of do you want to, be beholden to this state, and do you want to continually do exactly what you're asked, or do you potentially want to assist some other forces outside of the state? And to do that, you've probably got to be pretty careful, because the state will probably not take too kindly to you working with outside forces at this border checkpoint. So it's a very interesting game. It's also got some very interesting moral decisions. I approved someone earlier because their passport said male, but their look was female, and I was thinking, well, personally I'm progressive enough to understand, so I asked the question. You can interrogate, and this says male, and it says what's on the paperwork, and it said, so, okay, this is someone who identifies differently than what's on their paperwork. Approved. I got pinged by the state for that one. You're not allowed to do that. So the state is not progressive. The state needs what's on there to match your face, apparently. So that's unfortunate, but this was 1984 apparently. So it fits with the game. I got punished for my progressive way, and that's fine. That's okay. So the end-all be-all of the game is that you either continually check well and get better at this, or that something happens and either your family starves, or you get caught doing something you shouldn't, or you just aren't good enough at this and you fail. And that tends to be the ways it sort of ends. it's a really interesting premise, right? So the idea of checking people's paperwork at a border checkpoint in 1984 in a state that's probably going through some sort of turmoil, it's a really interesting premise to build a game around. The game was received very well when it first came out. I think it's an interesting little puzzle. Like, it's not much of an actual game versus a puzzle, and the puzzle itself is one of paying just incredible attention to detail, noticing minute changes on if a passport, if there's two letters swapped, you've got to be able to catch that. And when you catch that, you have a considerable amount of satisfaction that comes from going, oh, that person was trying to sneak through this checkpoint, and you catch it. And so also really puts you in the driver's seat of just these moralistic choices that are interesting. So it's thank you, Yuri. I love this. This is one of my favorite coffee mugs. This is my Stormtroopers. This was also for one of my son's birthdays. This was his wrapping paper. We had the same exact wrapping paper for his entire birthday present set up. So yeah, I love this mug. It's great. Sen and Eric, thank you for joining. Thank you so much for being here. I got to see Sen talk about what they've got coming up on Meeple Syrup this year, and I'm excited. I love Meeple Syrup. It's one of my favorite shows to catch, and we're going to try and make sure that we are all scheduling it at times where people can see everything all together. I think that'll be a cool initiative. So let's move on from Papers, Please, which is a very fun game, and I really enjoy it. It's slow. It's not gonna make you, it's definitely not something that's gonna make you feel like you've got a ton of investment in the game. You can stop it and pick it up whenever you'd like. But with Papers, Please, you'll see there I just got a citation for doing something incorrect, and it's a very strange game. It's strange to me that it's satisfying, and it is just about paying mostly attention to detail, and sitting in this thing where you're just a cog in the wheel, and it's an interesting juxtaposition to what most games, when you're playing them, are going to be. So I'll take the video down, and it's more of that. You just keep checking things. But the board game that I want to talk about that's somewhat like this is Deception Murder in Hong Kong. And Deception Murder in Hong Kong is sort of a social deduction game with a mix of what I would call, I don't even want to call it hints. I guess I would call them, there's pieces of evidence that lead towards a certain sort of, a certain sort of conclusion that you're trying to get someone to make. Versus a lot of social deduction is who is the traitor. In this one, you're trying to figure out, not only who did what, but how it was done, and you figure out, with a certain murder weapon and things like that. And there's these cards, and it's very card driven. I'm actually going to switch to the next image, catch up on comments here real quick. So yeah, Daniel said broadcasters assemble, and Sin said, of course, yes. Yuri said, where is this game available? For Papers, Please, it's on Steam. I believe if you just Google Papers, Please, it's on probably like GOG and a couple other game sites, but it's available on Steam. That's where I was playing it there. So with Deception Murder in Hong Kong, so full disclosure, I am not a fan of social deduction games. Generally, if you ask me to play one, I will say no thank you, unless it's very short, very quick. They are a genre that, just from my personal taste, I don't enjoy them thoroughly. I've had a fun time playing a few of them. Deception is one that I think does enough outside of just who's the bad guy that really feels compelling. So I've enjoyed playing it a couple times. For me, I guess I should clarify why it's not a huge taste of mine, and that is that one person can be bad at a role, and it can really sort of muck up the entire experience and make it not as fun as it should be. I don't love a design where you've got a person who could be a bad trader could make an entire 20 to 25 to 30 minute, maybe even 45-minute game bad for everyone playing it, which can sometimes be 10 plus people. Alternatively, a person who's bad at hiding their lies and things like that, or is physically uncomfortable with being a traitor or something like that, that person can easily be identified very often by people who play things like poker regularly, or notice tells, or notice behavioral I guess you'd say behavioral traits that people have when they don't want to be called out, I guess you'd say. So for that reason, social deduction only generally works in certain situations for me, and for a lot of people I think that tends to be the case. And so they're very fun if you are in a social setting, but I particularly don't like how they require essentially somebody to be skilled at the role of liar or investigator or whatever the case may be. With murder in Hong Kong deception, you can sort of decide, like, I don't want to be the investigator, guys. You can sort of talk about that stuff before, and the only thing that's going to come up is like the witness. I don't think that's so, again, there's still some aspects of social deduction in this that I don't love, but it's done in a way that feels more gamified to me, and it feels more of like a puzzle. I think I may have struck a chord with some other developers. I see some stuff here. So Sen says, if you get a chance, Marshall, take a look at the one-shot RPG that Jesse Wright and I wrote called Ties That Bind, if you're all interested in another take on trying to get across the border. I posted the draft on my Facebook page. Interesting. I will check that out. Speaking of which, I just decided not to go through Canada on my way back from Grand Rapids, Michigan, because I figure it would be a bigger hassle than going just through the U.S. the entire way. But it would be a little bit shorter to cut through Canada and actually come right through London, Sen. So I made the choice not to cross the border for that very reason. That's interesting. Martin says, I dislike social deduction too. Jeff says, first lifetime listener. Excellent. Thank you. I'm so glad to see you, Jeff. Jeff makes amazing games. If you guys have not checked out Jeff's games, you should definitely check out Moonquake Escape. And then also, oh my goodness, what is the Marshmallow game? You please post the title of the Marshmallow game, Jeff. I feel terrible that I don't remember it. I had it with me recently, and then shipped some off for charity donation that Jeff and I both did. So Michael says they're my least favorite, followed by flicking dexterity games and storytelling games without mitigating mechanics. I'll change it to mechanisms. I'm trying to change the word to mechanisms as a colloquialism, I guess. So Yuri says you're socially deduced. I do not know what that means. Okay, yeah. That may be it though, right? So Michael says, see you at GrantCon. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that, Michael. That's going to be great. And I actually need to hustle through this because I've got a ton to do before I leave tomorrow morning. Toasted or roasted? Thank you. Toasted or roasted? There we go. I appreciate it, Jeff. That is a really clever game and a really clever package. And if any of you have seen me at a convention, you know I love clever packaging. So, but yeah, Deception and Murder in Hong Kong. It's card-driven. You'll see here there's a bunch of different cards. There's a bunch of different hints. It's essentially you've got to pay attention to what people are sort of telling you and giving you ideas on what could have been the murder weapon, and then there's somebody who's trying to dissuade you from what's going on, and as the investigator you're having to figure these sorts of things out. So it's really satisfying compared to a lot of the other ones I want to, but you really have to pay attention to detail. I mean, at the same level as Papers, Please, I think if you miss a key detail, it could really mean you're not going to identify the person who is the murder suspect. And so I think it's one of the games that I enjoy most in that genre. Although it is my least favorite genre, I don't mind playing Murder in Hong Kong. It's got enough meat on it that it doesn't just feel like, who's the bad guy, and we go around in a circle trying to kill each other off and stuff. That's not, for whatever reason, I think it was that I played some of those games, growing up as a kid in like social groups and things like, where we would, so everyone puts their head down on the table and there's, mafia and things like that. And I understand them, I get them, but again, it's just so heavily leans on and requires someone to be good at lying or good at that role. And that's very, very, it's difficult for me to accept that as a game design mechanism that's like well done versus, just relying on the skills of the player. So, and I guess some games definitely do that, but for me, the best games are ones where really devoid of skill, you just go in and you have a good time and everybody has a good experience. And I'm looking more towards those types of games more, lately versus high strategy, incredibly balanced experiences, which are great. I enjoy them. I enjoy playing them. But I think design-wise and what, we're looking at now, we want to see about these experiences. So I think that's the third comment about my awesome T-shirt. I appreciate it. I love my Layways game shirt. I got to hang out with these folks at PAX East and actually work with their booth because Courtney was 8.5 months pregnant with our son Corbin, who's now been here for a few months. But yeah, she was super pregnant, and I was worried I might have to roll out at any time. So instead of having a booth, I worked with John and his entire team, and I learned a lot about how to run a booth properly. To be honest, it was a really, really eye-opening experience. They're great folks as well. Like it's every day I'm more and more floored by how many awesome people there are in this industry and how many I get to encounter on a regular basis. So Sin says he thinks he saw that in a national park. I do believe that Jeff's game is in a national park and is in national park like gift stores, and it is sold in a bag, and it's I believe it's there. Daryl, I appreciate the comment on the t-shirt. Ian says, we'll see if you want to try Hail Hydra when you're here. I really like it, and it has some great mechanisms that don't hinge on social deduction. I'm up for trying any game once. I need to try new games all week while we're there, honestly. That's part of my catch-up that I've got to do. And then Daryl says, interesting, I'm hearing this more and more. People don't want skill in a game. I don't want the game to fully rely on the skill of each individual player. I guess that should be clarified a little bit more. But yes, it's an incredibly Jeff, by all means, I go on tangents all the time. Don't worry about it. But it's an incredibly fun thing to me when a player can play at the age of 5 or like 70. I mean, it just, when skill really doesn't matter. Dexterity games are even in that when you're just having fun flicking things, and stuff like that. But you can be a very skilled dexterity player, and it makes it hard for other players. There's certain games that are experience driven, and I think that's what I'm thinking about now, is that there's a considerable amount of experience in murder, deception in Hong Kong versus some social deduction that I get, I play. And so that ends up being the difference or the correlation between enjoying that one versus maybe not loving the genre otherwise. So, so I want to go on to a new segment that is the media that I want to talk about this week, and I've been watching it a few times real fast. It says, Daryl says, I personally don't like storytelling in general, not because of skill, more to do with a player being put on the spot. No, I agree fully, Daryl. I think that's a good point, is that, so if you're not comfortable making up a story on the spot or thinking up or even just reading off of text on the spot in front of other people, then that experience isn't going to be great for you. So it's when it comes to storytelling, I agree that if you have to come up with a story quickly, for some people, that's not the experience they're looking for. So it does rely on your skill to be a storyteller and your skill in improvisation, your skill in, just being sort of maybe witty, or your humor, because a lot of people like to pepper those things into stories. So, Mom says, it's not much fun to play when others are good at the game and you aren't. Frustrating and makes you quit playing. Yeah, that's it. If somebody's so much better than you that you can't even get started, it can be very frustrating. I play a few video games like that where I just, the wall and the skill floor is so high that it's hard to get into those games. Sin says, I think there's a type of player who does want skill. The mass audience is less skewed that way, definitely. Yeah, so I'm actually that player who wants a skilled game that requires you to sink lots of hours of time into either theory crafting, thought, or dexterity. If it's video games, that's a lot of dexterity, is training your hands to do difficult motions on a regular basis. So Tekken is a game that I love to play for a long time because it requires you to actually have skill. There is no way to button mash your way past someone who knows how to counter each hit that you throw. It's a lot of fun to learn how to do those things. Unfortunately, it tends to be too time consuming, so I don't get to do it much anymore. But yeah, this has been eye opening. I think there's a lot of folks that agree with this or even understand it if they don't. So Sin says, I love that your mom listens. I love that my mom listens too. We live 3,000 miles apart, so this is one way we get to interact and talk about the show and stuff like that, and it's great. It is fun to be able to interact with family this far away. The internet is super magic. But the media I want to talk about this week is Martin Poole, who may be still watching, and his board game expose. And so Martin's had on a few guests already where he's talking about industry things, what they do, what their roles are with their company. And the first guest, I believe, was Julie Ahern from Greenbrier Games. Good friend of mine, awesome person, awesome game company. You might see a stack of Greenbrier games sitting right over there because I went to lunch with her, and she just said, "Have some awesome games," and I said, "You're too cool. You're amazing, Julie." So yeah, can't wait to play some of these games that I've got from them. But I want to talk a little bit about what Martin's doing and why I think it's important. So, talking to industry, folks is part of what I think gets more people involved in the industry, and learning that we're all just, generally people with a passion to have fun, to create fun items, and ultimately, of course, make profit while doing it. But you ultimately, this is not the most profitable avenue for any sort of business. So if you're making tabletop games, you're probably doing it because you love games. There are very, very few industries where that is the majority, but I do think creative industries tend to have more of that. So I love board games, and I love what Martin's doing, because what he's doing here is he's talking to people who run entire companies or run entire departments of companies that are making board games. And if you don't check it out, you should, because this Friday, I believe, he has on the one and only Stephen Buonocore, who is the top dog over at Stronghold Games, which was responsible for, Terraforming Mars, Great Western Trail, some of the biggest games of the last 2 years. Stronghold's been making good games for a while as well, and I really enjoy the two that I just mentioned. Great Western Trail is one of my favorite games. I know not everyone feels the same way, but I think it is one of the best. It is the best worker placement rondel game I've ever played. I don't know that there is another rondel, so it gets easy out. But it's a deck builder with worker placement with a rondel that you build each time. I love it. I love it. So. I don't know if his new title, I don't know which side of the Indie Boards and Cards merger comes out on top. I would think it's Stronghold just because they got the castle, but I really don't know. I don't know what his new title is post-merger, but I love what they do. Sure, yeah, so Stronghold, I realize, imports a lot of games with Eggert Spiel and stuff from the U.S. There's a brilliance in that, right? Like, I mean, getting a hold of the rights of games that you think will do well and cherry picking your American lineup that you're going to, or North American lineup that you're going to distribute is fine. Stronghold developed games may be different than Stronghold acquired games, but realistically, Steven knows what he's doing. He knows how to bring solid experiences to the table. I've had some qualms with quality on certain games. I think that the quality on Great Western Trail is fantastic. I think the quality on Terraforming Mars is atrocious. But I just think the games are so good. It doesn't, at a certain point when a game is so fun or the engine mechanic is so satisfying, you don't, I would say you don't have to. You should. They should give that an update for sure. But they are, just good games. They're really, really solid. And they're a good publisher. They tend to service things well. I think my copy of Great Western Trail was missing or had a misprinted tile, and they sent one out to all of us and stuff like that. So, but Martin is going to have him live, talking to him this week on Board Game Expose, and you're going to get to hear, or maybe you'll see a cardboard cutout. I don't know. Steven has been known to do that, put a cardboard cutout where he should be. I think last year at PAX Unplugged, I got to talk to a cardboard cutout of Steven. I got to talk to him for a moment at New York Toy Fair this year as well. So Daryl says just giving him a hard time. Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing you as well, Daryl, at GrandCon, right? We're actually going to get to hang out. I think that's going to be a blast. But yeah, Board Game Exposure. It's a new show. If you haven't checked it out, go check out Martin. He asks questions. People answer them. You should definitely enjoy it if you like board game stuff. I promise. So, all right. And the last thing I want to talk about this week is, wow, did Daryl just say woohoo? Do you know what's coming? Daryl, are you spying on me here somewhere? This is crazy. Literally, the last thing we're going to talk about is theme songs. And the theme song I'm going to talk about specifically is woohoo indeed, Daryl. It's DuckTales. It's DuckTales. That's right. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. All right? I mean, if you don't know the DuckTales theme song, go listen to it right now, and you'll have it in your head for the rest of the week. Somebody at some point recently to me said, something about the DuckTales theme song, and we my wife and I can sing this thing all the way through. We listen to it more than we should. We sing it way more than we should. And anytime things are going crazy, or Everything's Wild, somebody might sing out Life is Like a Hurricane. So, yeah, and here we go. Daniel says, might solve a mystery or rewrite history. DuckTales. Woohoo. Indeed. So here's the point about theme songs. You're probably like, what does this have to do with marketing with a show that was put out in the 1980s? Well, first of all, they've brought DuckTales back. They have a new theme song, stuck to the original, got an awesome female singer who comes in and just nails it. Don't know if you've seen the new show. They also have female ducks involved. Cheers to that. I appreciate it. Now, with DuckTales, here's the thing. The first time I heard that, or first few times I heard that watching the cartoon as a kid, it definitely stuck. But the point of a theme song, like a DuckTales theme song, is to do just that. To be catchy, to stick in your head. There are a number of them. If somebody gives you the first line, you go. If you were, grew up like I did in the 1980s and 1990s, you can go, oh, okay. It's like I can't hear the phrase "when I wake up in the morning" without, in my head, an alarm goes off the alarm sends out a warning because of Saved by the Bell and watching that for way too long as a young adult. So there's a number of theme songs and they're catchy. And what's the point of that, right? Why do these companies spend lots of money on theme songs? Like, people get written real checks, lots of money to write theme songs for shows. The reason being is it's a psychological plug that sticks for a really, really long time. Like, it doesn't go away. We're talking about a show that I first encountered in the 1980s, and most of my peers can recite the DuckTales, and even if you can't recite it, if people start singing it, you start singing along and you kind of know it. So it is exactly that. It's a brain invasion. Jeff just said, "Drat, you and your tune brain invasion." But that's what it is they invade your brain with this song that's catchy, and you have it for a while. And there's a bunch of really cool songs like this. Now, I have a song tied to my intro and my outro. That is not by coincidence. When you hear that song, I want you to start thinking about coffee and board games and this beautiful face right here. And that's the whole point of what that is. Now, I'd like to hear if any of you know of a board game that has a theme song. Because I don't. I've been racking my brain for about a week thinking about this, and I just don't think I can think of a board game. Take away all IPs. So Game of Thrones, anything cannot be the Game of Thrones theme song. If that is an answer, then okay. Then everything with a theme has a theme song. Now, a real theme to a game where every time you see stuff that is about it having the same song, that's something I think could be a positive marketing trend, and I think that more creators should think about having a theme song. So, does Dead Man's Doubloons have a theme song? It's a very interesting idea to me to have a theme song for your games. I will say one thing I think that's awesome is a soundtrack to play the games to, and Scythe has this. Someone put one together at one point, I think, that was just, music from from different, at least Soviet-sounding music. And so I think that eventually somebody, if I remember, put a real Scythe playlist together, and that's, got something going for it as well. Now that Scythe has a digital game, I'm guessing that is, sort of peppered throughout that. So, that's one way to do it. But I'm getting some answers here. I see Cat Tower and Awesome Kingdom, Laser Riders and Sentinels of the Multiverse. There's a whole album of music for Laser Riders. Okay, so that's the one that comes in the VHSs, and I mean, that one looks very, very retro sort of synthwave to me, so I could imagine that. So cool. There have been some. I think that it's a really good idea to continue that trend and maybe make it more apparent with, popular games. It's Great Western Trail should have had an awesome country song that was, alongside it or something like that. So that's just my thought on it. I appreciate you guys watching this week, and y'all have been awesome. I really appreciate everything. I have got to get out of here. This coffee was delicious. I really appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate all the incredible interaction this week. This was so much fun. If you guys think of any more games that have soundtracks, feel free to add them down below or in the YouTube comments, and we will see you next week. Thank you again so much for being here. I am leaving for Ohio tomorrow morning before the sun comes up, and I will be back on Sunday after the sun comes down. So I'll see y'all next Monday right back here, but I will be tired. Y'all have a fantastic, fantastic week. Make sure that if you're designing games, you get them done, and if you are enjoying coffee, enjoy yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye.